Welcome, I'm Matt Bautel, and in this unit we're going to be learning about fragments. So the first question that you might have, of course, is what is a fragment? And a fragment here is basically a reusable sub-activity. And the best way that I have to explain is actually to show you an example. So here's one that a former student and I put together. This is an example of an activity that has two fragments on it, right? Appropriately named Fragment 1 and Fragment 2, each with a button and a text view, right? So if I click on one, right, then it actually is going to update a counter in the second one, right? And if I click in 2, then it's going to do some color randomization of both of them, right? So something like that. So whether you realize it yet or not, each of those fragments that I showed you has its own layout. It has its own lifecycle, actually, right? So these couple of fragments here each live within their activity, and they can actually be added or removed at runtime. And I'll show you that in a second. All right, we clearly saw that there can be communication sort of between different fragments, right? As we saw here. And it turns out that the fragments are super for reconfiguring layouts on different size devices, right? Let's see, so I said they can be added or removed at runtime. I guess it's worth showing here. So let's go ahead, and if I click this little menu selection up here to go to a grid, I've actually put together a simple sort of 2x3 grid, and the first two places that I click are going to get fragments, right? So I put the first one up here, and maybe the second one I put down on the bottom right here. And these are the same two fragments, same code. I didn't have to sort of rewrite what happened within each one of these, right? I just sort of plopped it in, and they work exactly as they had before, right? So how do we do this? What do we need to know in order to be able to learn this, right? So by the end of the unit, here's the things that you should be able to do, right? Number one, you should certainly be able to create fragment views and controllers, right? Very clear. They're going to be very similar to activities. You should be able to add them at runtime, like I showed you. You should be able to use interfaces to communicate between fragments, and we'll see that that's just good object-oriented design. And finally, you should be able to place fragments depending on the device, right? And we'll take a look at that towards the end of the lab. All right, so what are some similarities and differences? The first thing is that your class is going to extend fragment instead of activity, right, as we can see right here. But a lot of the other stuff within here is going to seem fairly familiar, right? So there's onCreate, right? Oh, we know about that. Although it's a little bit more than that, because actually onCreate view is a little bit different, because you might want to create a fragment once, but then actually inflate its view more than once, right? Because it's going to go into multiple places, right? So we'll actually take a look at those callbacks in a second here. On attach is another one. The layout is actually going to be just like in activities, right? So this for each one we just had a relative layout with a text view and a button and so on. I mean, you saw that in the sample app. Not too complicated, right? So let's take a look at the life cycle here. So a fragment's life cycle is similar to an activities. But it has a little bit more to it, right? So let's take a look here. So we have a couple of things here. So first of all, when you add it, it's going to call onAttach, and at that point, the fragment knows who its parent is. So if you need to connect it to the activity itself, that's where you want to do it. If you want to store a reference like back to the activity, good place to do it. Next thing is that onCreate is if you have any data variables, things that you want to remember, that would be the place to do it. Those are going to be instantiated once. As we said, onCreate view is going to inflate the view itself, right, and return it. So that's where you'd be doing things like adding listeners, because you need to actually turn them from an XML layout file into code. So that's where you can first capture them. And then if you need to do anything that's actually dependent upon the parent UI, you can do that in the onActivity created, right? And at that point, the parent activity is guaranteed to be there. All right, so what other kind of things? I want to give you a high-level view here. So how do we add or remove fragments? So let me give you a good example here. This is a simple one. You remember the Fragment Manager from a different unit, the one in Dialogues. So we call get Fragment Manager. And Fragment Managers here can construct transactions, right? So you ask it, hey, begin a transaction for me, and it's gonna return this transaction, and then you can do multiple things before you commit the transaction, right? So in this case, what we were doing is we're gonna create an instance of each of our fragments, and then go ahead and add them, right? So we're saying where do they go to, and these guys are our frame layouts, right? So we have a couple of places in our main activity layout where we can stick a fragment. So we say them there, and then we say which fragment is going there. And once you've done whatever you need to do, then you can go ahead and commit the transaction. You'll be doing this in the activity shortly. So how do fragments communicate via the parent activity, right? So we said that they have to have a pointer back to the activity. And generally, we're going to be following O design here, and specifically separation of concerns. So we would say that a fragment is not responsible for doing the action. It's responsible for telling the activity to do it, right? So a fragment is going to have an instance of some object that implements that interface, right? So we could say that the fragment here has a listener called an on-random color change listener, right? It doesn't need to know who's implementing that interface. It just needs to have an instance here. And back over here, the main activity, it turns out, is the one that implements this interface, right? So what's separating them is, the interface itself, right? So that's defined here, and we will declare a couple of these in our code, and that just our on-random color change listener has a randomized color method. So a couple of questions that have come together in the past. So the first is, can I declare fragments in XML? Absolutely, no problem. So you could have a linear layout with a couple of fragments directly in it. Just declare them as fragments. If you want to get them, then you can ask the fragment manager, hey, find the fragment by ID instead of find view by ID. Other people have asked, why I'm looking for my fragment, I'm looking for it in the manifest. Why isn't it there? And again, it only exists within the context of an activity, and activities are in the manifest, right? So they're kind of smaller than would be required to put in the manifest. Okay, that's all we got for you for this lesson. The bulk of the learning this time is going to happen very much in the lab, so we'll see you back for our next lesson.